Now that Shadow of the Erdtree has arrived and we're in the final stages of Elden Ring's support cycle, we can look at what we still want FromSoft to patch before the game is officially complete. As it stands, to the dismay of many, the DLC had little in the way of multiplayer improvements. No Colosseum additions, no Covenants, no removal of easy anti-cheat, nothing to compensate for the lackluster multiplayer experience Elden Ring has offered since release. But among all offenders, the most severe in my estimation is the lack of 6-player multiplayer outside of the Colosseum. This, coupled with a lack of invasion zones, removes any opportunity for 4v2 and 3v3 invasions. But why is this such an issue? For those of you in the audience who don't invade, the problem may seem non-existent. If you co-op, invaders are probably more of an annoyance than anything. And if you gank, 3v1 might be your favorite odds. But if you like to fight for an indefinite amount of time with the odds always shifting, 4v2 and 3v3 have historically been the best modes. Currently, Elden Ring only supports 2 invaders in a 2v2 setting, and while that can be a lot of fun, it's difficult to facilitate. The second invader slot is available to the host team as well, and the invaders are not implicitly allied. Anecdotally, on the rare occasion that I get a co-invader, there's probably a 1 in 3 chance that they just attack me and side with the host for whatever reason. It's a real treat. Even when they don't turn on me, 2v2 just isn't a reliable or easily repeatable event. There are too many variables and only one scenario that works. On top of everything, it requires use of the Taunter's tongue. And it's that exact tool that needs a patch. The Taunter's tongue is a spiritual successor to the dried finger from Dark Souls. Its primary feature is the resetting of the invisible invasion cooldown timer that protects hosts from being invaded too frequently. The reason someone would want to reset the cooldown is simple: endless PvP. This is the foundation of ganking, flipping the script on invaders by exploiting the game's mechanical host advantages. If you invade or gank, you probably have some pretty strong feelings on the matter, but I'd bet more than anything you have some level of appreciation for the activity level ganking provides. While invading players cooperating through the game may be the intended experience, that pool dries up as the games age. Ganking provides a way to keep invading and the PvP scene alive and well. Beyond the resetting of the invasion timer, the dried finger served a very important second function. It expanded the player limit from 4 to 6. This is a feature that was first added in the Scholar of the First Sin release of Dark Souls 2, and was retained in both Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls Remastered. It took ganking from an easy 2v1 or 3v1 smackdown to a 4v2 battleground. Fighting with 3 cooperators gives a comfortable advantage to the host, and adding a second invader makes the fight a lot less predictable. But I don't want to advocate for a change purely as a ganking tool. More than that, anyone who wants regular invasions and appreciates bigger battles has a 50% increased player count to facilitate. I feel it can't be understated just how different a 6-player match feels, especially when you have regular resummons and continued invasions. So why, in their infinite wisdom, FromSoftware opted to ruin the palette-swapped replacement is beyond me. It's the sort of decision that seems intentionally designed to prevent people from engaging in repeat invasions by removing any incentive to engage with the system. I've seen it speculated that the game engine simply can't handle another 2 players, especially with the older generation of consoles supported. But I don't think that's the reason, and not just because the Colosseum got a 6-player mode that also supports Spirit Ashes. We know from modders that all sorts of things are possible, such as entering dungeons from the overworld and having every player in a session on horseback. It's not a technical issue. And even if technical issues were a problem, I have a hard time believing it would do anything to diminish the already very shoddy system, as if adding more players would somehow break or ruin the very broken version we currently have. Peer-to-peer latency is going to be a problem no matter how many players are involved. Whatever complications more players could add, It would be to our net benefit. But FromSoftware chose to decrease the player limit anyway, and I'm convinced it has more to do with how FromSoftware thinks of Elden Ring's multiplayer and PvP broadly. They don't really care about it. Not in a cynical or greedy way, mind you, but in the way that they don't engage with it themselves. When developing games, common sense would dictate you make a game you'd want to play. I think the staff of FromSoftware are very much of this mindset. They want to make a game that they'd enjoy playing. The issue, as I see it, is they don't PvP. I believe that some members of the staff of FromSoftware play Elden Ring beyond the scope of pure testing, but I have a hard time believing anyone on the team actually invades. If they did, I can't imagine them enjoying the state it's in. The initial releases probably wouldn't need emergency patches just to fix issues that are immediately apparent upon using a new weapon. The Fire Knight Greatsword having an R1-R1 true combo that has now been thankfully patched is the sort of thing that became clear to me the first time I was hit with it. The idea that staff dedicated to PvP testing, or staff who regularly PvP, didn't notice something so obvious tells me they either have no idea how the PvP works in general, or, more realistically, they never tested it. This is the sort of oversight that actually provides considerable insight, however speculative, into FromSoftware's pre-release PvP process. It does not exist. By all indications, the PvP modes are just something that were carried over from the framework of Dark Souls 3 and given only the bare minimum number of adjustments to make them lore compatible. Without covenants to alter the interactions, I imagine they saw no need to focus on the system at all. But after Elden Ring's release and it became clear the PvP was all but forgotten, PvP fans weren't thrilled. To their credit, FromSoftware tried to appease those players by patching separate balancing for PvE and PvP, meaning players who didn't PvP at all could be unaffected by PvP-specific changes. They even added the free Coliseum update to give dedicated PvP a place to shine, though it was repurposed cut content and arguably a step back from the arenas of Dark Souls 3. But those updates showed FromSoftware were at least aware of the PvP community and knew something should be done to fix outstanding issues. They saw a problem, and they tried to address it. So why stop there? Why not fix the rest of the PvP? Beyond measures like adding covenants or other asset-heavy additions, there are numerical system adjustments that would go an incredible distance in addressing the community's remaining issues. As is, the arenas are pretty boring, with all three being flat circles, and the matchmaking is unusable outside of the most common level ranges. The non-adjustable timer isn't exactly ideal, and without any form of guidance or transparency, getting a match is a real gamble that is guaranteed to waste a lot of your time. But I understand a lot of those fixes to the arena would be more involved, and, while they'd likely be worth the effort, I'll have to focus on that more in another video. Instead, for my money, the Taunter's Tongue is the answer. It's just the dried finger, but with two major flaws. It doesn't increase the player count, thereby removing a major incentive to use it beyond ganking, and it can be toggled off at will. As someone who ganked a lot in the early years of Dark Souls 3, I miss what 6-player matches offered. I loved teaming up with some friends to fight off endless invaders. When I shifted primarily into invading later on, I loved having teams to go up against with the possibility of allies on my side. It was my favorite multiplayer experience in any game, and it deserves to be in Elden Ring. And as someone who has been the victim of many ganks in Elden Ring, it'd be great to remove some of the vitriol that comes with 3v1 spam fests while knowing that even if you kill a summon, they've toggled off the tongue so you can't get an ally. It just ruins the fun, because otherwise, a properly facilitated gank can be fun for everyone involved. It doesn't have to just be a nightmare blowout. It can be good. And not facilitating those interactions is the sort of neglect that seriously damages a PvP-focused community. I hardly play Elden Ring beyond what I do for my channel because invading is so one-note that I can't stay engaged. Entire channels have been abandoned or pivoted because of the lowered interest in the state of the game. But this is a unique problem and the sort of thing that I don't think anyone at FromSoftware personally experiences. I think when Hidetaka Miyazaki plays Elden Ring, he only sees invasions from the perspective of the host. It feels like no one on the inside is considering the perspective of the invader. To them, the idea that invasions get boring or are often unrewarding probably never comes up in their list of things to correct. It's one thing to have outright imbalances where items work in unintended ways, but it's a separate thing entirely to recognize an experience long-term when you yourself don't participate even in the short term. Which, to be clear, doesn't have to be an issue. You don't need to be good at gaming or even actively playing the game to make good games. You just need to understand the wants and needs of players and work to fulfill them. The best way to do that is to take feedback and listen to your community. They certainly do it for other parts of the community. It seems only fair invaders get the same treatment. After all, invaders are players too. And I could be wrong. Maybe some of FromSoftware's staff do invade and they love it just the way it is. I don't exactly understand why they'd prefer it with fewer players, but it's a possibility. But barring their explicit wish, which I would want clearly stated in no uncertain terms, they could just patch it. They should just patch it. Just take the number in the game's file that corresponds to multiplayer count and change it from 4 to 6 when the Taunter's tongue is active. Make 2 slots dedicated to invaders and make a third available to either side. And remove the ability to toggle it off. The tongue stays on. I know I'm trivializing some elements of game design by painting this as easy, but I am adamant that this can be done with less effort and to greater benefit than any other patch in the game. This is an incredibly small ask with a huge payoff potential. Better yet, it would in no way negatively affect anyone who isn't interested in PvP. It would only give people who love PvP an infinitely better way to enjoy it. It's the logic of an arena with the sensibility and embrace of the beautiful world they've created. It's truly that simple. And we, as Elden Ring's loyal and exhausted community, deserve an uncontested win. I fear we're staring down a long and uneventful wait for a replacement Souls game, which I suspect could easily be 5 years away. I hope I'm wrong, but no matter how long the wait is, this is the sort of change that could single-handedly save Elden Ring as a PvP mainstay. So please, FromSoftware, please Miyazaki, listen to the PvP faithful. Give us back our big fights. It's the one thing that really matters, and it really would make all the difference. One change to save the game forever. That's all for this video. This is a topic I touch on a lot, but I really can't get past just how devastating it is to not have the bigger battles. I want even bigger battles than 6 players, but realistically, I think the odds of getting ahead of where we were in Dark Souls 3 are non-zero. But it's not too late. FromSoftware is patching the game actively and responding to community feedback. So if you want to see them increase the player limit, please share this video, like it, and leave a comment of how much you miss what the PvP was in previous games with the higher limit, or about other things in PvP you'd like to see. Make some noise to let FromSoft know just how much we care about this issue before they move on entirely. We're not asking a lot. And if you're a content creator who wants this and any other changes, please get into the conversation. Make your voice heard. I'm small time and can't expect to have a big impact on my own. We need to have a collective voice if we want to see real changes. The clock is ticking, people. We're only getting so many patches before they're finished with the game. Let's make this happen. And until then, thank you for watching.